40 years is a long time to do most things. It's an exceptional amount of time to live with the gift of a kidney transplant.
It's morbid to think about it. But on the other hand, when you say, well, I had a transplant 40 years ago and I'm still here, and that person that was my donor, he wasn't planning on dying, but it happens.
That's kidney transplant recipient and member of Team Illinois, Debbie Ramsey. I'm Monica Fox, kidney transplant recipient and Senior Director of Outreach and Government Relations for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, and your host for this episode of The Journey Continues. On this episode, Debbie shares how she's lived 40 wonderful years with her transplanted kidney. Hi, Debbie.
Hey there.
Can you share your initial diagnosis that started your journey?
Oh, many, many years ago, I was just about 3 years old, and my parents took me in to have some testing because of, I don't know, I think I had the flu, maybe something like that, and there was protein in the urine. Okay, so that started the whole process of keeping an eye on things, and but I progressed to have kidney infections and different kinds of, again, like flu-like symptoms. And so when they tested me again, well, now I'm more like maybe 10 years old, not only was there protein in the urine, but I had high blood pressure. And so I was put on medications. And from then on, because my father was in the military, we traveled from Air Force Base to Air Force Base. A little difficult to keep track of medical records, but throughout the years, it was determined I had chronic glomerulonephritis. And that is a disease where the kidney is slowly deteriorating, nephron by nephron, of which your kidney has so many thousands of nephrons. When I was a child, they described it to me like your kidney was a sieve and things were spilling out of the kidney that wasn't supposed to. But I lived many, many years with that diagnosis and staying on blood pressure medicines. And my kidneys actually failed when I was 26.
Wow, that was a lot to deal with as a child growing up. Must have made you quite a strong person.
It's just kind of what I knew. I knew that was wrong with me, or I didn't really share it with a lot of people. But I knew that I had to take these medications, but I lived a totally normal childhood. Many, many activities that I was involved in, including sports, gymnastics, music lessons, everything that a normal child would do, running and playing with my friends. And I don't think anything really affected me, except as I got older, the medications had to be fixed because they were not doing what they were supposed to do, or they were over medicating me. So those were the kind of things that I had to deal with. Maybe missing a little bit of school because I had a kidney biopsy when I was in high school, but went on to go to college. And again, on the gymnastics team, I was in the marching band, and nothing really held me back.
So when your kidneys failed, what happened then? Did you go on dialysis?
Yes. When I was 23, I got pregnant. My husband and I, we were pretty much set that I was told, I was maybe 12 years old, that I probably wouldn't have any children. So when I did meet my future husband, I made sure he knew that, and everything was fine. That was going to be our lifestyle, is not to have any children. Then I found that I was pregnant. I didn't know what was going on. I was, nauseous, and I thought, oh, maybe my kidneys were acting up, whatever. But I took a pregnancy test at home and it was positive. So I went to my nephrologist. I told him about it, and he was very, very concerned. He was like, this is going to cause complications, and he was really kind of going a little overboard with it. And he actually told me to terminate the pregnancy. He said that I could die.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Or the baby wouldn't make it to full term. And I just sort of kind of went, well, I'm going to go ahead with this. But he was not very supportive. So I switched doctors. And in fact, I have the same doctor when I switched. I still have him today. And, they wanted to make sure I realized it wasn't because of the pregnancy, but that did kind of speed up the kidney failure. My son was born, had some problems at the beginning, but 3 weeks in the NIC unit at Evanston Hospital, he came home and he just got married last November. So
That's awesome.
he's quite a blessing. In fact, he was at the transplant games in Birmingham. So life goes on, and I went on dialysis, and sometimes he'd come with me, or I drop him off at my mom for her to babysit him. Again, it was just kind of part of our routine. And I did peritoneal dialysis and I did hemodialysis. I did both. And my sister was going to give me one of her kidneys. She was going to be a living donor, but then she got pregnant. So they found out, that she was pregnant probably somewhere around December of 1983. So then I said, you know what? I'm just going to put my name on the list. And so I went to Northwestern Hospital and went through some lab testing. My father had to go. My mom was actually being tested to be a donor as well, but I did put my name on the list. And in 1 year, December of 84, my niece was born in August, but we thought we would wait till my sister was not nursing her. It was more convenient for her to be a donor. But in December, they called me, and actually my son Kevin was 4 years old, and he answered the phone when Northwestern called, told me there was a dialysis nurse on the phone. And I said, oh, tell him I'll call him back, because I was resting in it. I thought it was Mike, my peritoneal dialysis nurse. I could call him back. And he came back in my room and said, Mom, she's from Northwestern Hospital. And he's only 4 years old. And I said, oh, Northwestern. And this is not my peritoneal dialysis nurse.
Right.
So I took the call. They asked me if I wanted to come down and take the kidney, because you can say no. And I said, yeah, sure. I'm not doing anything else today. So we packed up. I took my son to my mom's house. My husband drove me to Northwestern, and I was on the operating table around 6 o'clock that night, and it was done by 8 o'clock.
And how'd you feel when you realized that was the call that you had been waiting for?
Kind of in shock, like, okay, well, let's do this. Pack a few things and let's go. It was kind of so sudden. You don't have a lot of time to really figure out how you feel. You just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how has your life changed in these 40 years since your transplant?
Just like anybody else, you move on and you feel so much better, of course, as you know, and you start to make plans for the future. We wanted to have more children. I did become pregnant while I was after the transplant, but I had a miscarriage. But that, I said, well, whatever, that's the way my life is planned by God's plan for me. And so then we looked into foster care, and we became foster parents, and we adopted 2 little twin girls 10 years after my son was born. So they're 10 years apart. And life went on another roller coaster with 2 little girls, beautiful girls that really added a lot of activity to our lives, and one that required a lot of energy, which I did have. I was very full of energy and wanted to make up for a little bit of lost time. I coached the gymnastics team at Antioch High School. I became the choir director at church. And of course, the 2 little girls kept me running around. Kevin was involved in all kinds of things, and, pretty much a normal life of having a family of 3 kids and a dog.
Those are definitely some significant milestones.
And then I found out about the transplant games through the mail. Maybe I just got on some kind of list, maybe Northwestern. And I always said I wanted to do that, but I just couldn't, because there was a lot of little kids running around my house. We were still foster parents even after we adopted the girls. But then when I did go over to this meeting in Schaumburg, Gina and Max Baxter, I listened to a lot of these stories. And in 2004, I went to my first games in Minneapolis. Another life changer. Absolutely.
Tell us about that. What are the transplant games like?
Well, your first one is usually the one most memorable, and I'm no exception. It was in Minneapolis, so I drove with another teammate, and you're just overwhelmed. First of all, you register, so you walk in, and there's all these people just walking around with different T-shirts on from Mississippi and Nebraska, California, Florida, just all buddy buddy, and I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. Then when you go into opening ceremonies, each state walks in with their team. The team consists of anyone with a solid organ transplant, bone marrow, cornea. There's 20 events or more that you can participate in. You're divided by your gender and your age. And so it's pretty much like any other competition as far as the Olympics or maybe, the Special Olympics or Wounded Warriors. It's all for awareness of who you are and what you represent, but also it gives you a chance to say, I'm alive and I'm still here and I'm going to compete as an athlete. They've added different events so that we want to welcome so many more participants that don't feel like they're athletically inclined. So we have poker, or we have Lyrics for Life, which is a singing, our own little American Idol. And we have trivia, things where the participant doesn't have to be physically able. We have individuals in wheelchairs, or like myself, now I have had some issues with mobility. So I'm walking around with my walker and still able to swim, because that's just a wonderful exercise for anyone, especially myself with inability to walk very far. So you just walk in, you're overwhelmed. You get to the point where you're all going to march in together, and you just feel like, am I really an athlete? Am I walking in with a flag with my team's name on it, and we're all around and the crowd is cheering you, and you really feel special. You really feel like, wow, I made it to the big time. Even though, many people in the United States or around the world, we do have the international games, the world games. They've never even heard of it. I'll walk in to maybe get my blood drawn or something, and I try to wear T-shirts that say something about the games so that I can spread the word, or at least organ donation awareness. And they're like, no, I never heard of it. I'm just amazed, because once in a great while, someone goes, oh yeah, I've heard of that. But it's something that we're trying to get the word out, trying to get more participants. Now there's living donors that can participate, or donor family participation. So for us, it's just a wonderful event. When I say us, I mean the people who are participating.
And participants win medals, right?
Yep, gold, silver, and bronze.
I happen to know you won a gold.
I sure did. My first individual gold in the swimming event. I had a gold with trivia in 2016, but that's a team event. But the swimming in Birmingham was my first individual gold. Very proud of it.
You should be. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Even the last place person, which I have been many times, they're getting more applause than maybe the first person that won the gold. That person that we're trying to encourage to keep swimming, keep doing, we're just crazy for them to finish and to feel just as proud as taking last place as first.
Yes. And so you mentioned organ donor awareness. Can you speak to the importance of organ donation and what that means to you personally?
I think it was referred to just this past January 1st, the Rose Bowl. So you picture all the people that are in that stadium. Well, that's how many people are waiting for an organ transplant. And so that's quite a number. If you really envision that stadium full of people, and each one of them is waiting for a liver, a heart, pancreas, kidney, lungs, intestines, and they're doing face transplants now, and different things that are, the medical world is really on top of things, their technology is phenomenal. So getting the word out, it's like the transplant games. You might ask somebody, have you heard of organ donation? And they're like, they don't really want to talk about it. That means you have to die. It's morbid to think about it. But on the other hand, when you say, well, I had a transplant 40 years ago and I'm still here, and that person that was my donor, he wasn't planning on dying, but it happens. And his wife and his sons decided that that's what they would do. And back 40 years ago, it's different than it is today. So today, you can go online and you sign up to be an organ donor. You can go online and unsign up if you feel like sometime later that, I didn't really want to do that, which hopefully isn't the case. But for the most part, people, when I've worked some kind of a booth and you're talking to them, they're like, yeah, why not? I don't need them after I'm dead. But there has to be that initial contact. So there's a lot of people who are out there at the driver's license facilities, or there's a gal out in New York every weekend. She's at the Palisades Mall and she sets up her table and she had a heart transplant, and she'll just grab you as you're walking by and say, hey, have you ever heard of organ donation? And she's really something because she doesn't stop and she's very persuasive. Or in your own little way, maybe you're just helping out by stuffing envelopes, or like I do when I'm at my lab work, mention organ donation and who you are. Now, most of the people I've talked to in the medical field, I'll say, have you signed up to be an organ donor? 9 times out of 10, they have. And then I just say, well, thank you. And so that's the biggest thing, is trying to get the word out.
And I am living with my kidney transplant now for 8 years. So I definitely look up to you with your 40 years. And I have to ask, how do you maintain a healthy lifestyle as a recipient? Anything that you can share, any tricks of the trade for me?
That question is always asked. And I always think, I'm not great with my diet. I don't smoke and I don't drink, but just last night I had a whole Hershey's chocolate bar before I went to bed. They say drink water. Yeah, okay, I drink some water here. First of all, I just think that I'm on different Zoom meetings and we talk about transplants. And we've all pretty much come to agreement that if you have a positive outlook, your chances are just a heck of a lot better. Fill your life with activities, live every day to the fullest, take that trip. Who cares? I even took trips when I was on peritoneal dialysis. I had to carry with me all these different bags of solution. It's a long process. I won't get into it, but you have a lot of equipment to do peritoneal dialysis. But I just packed them up in the car, and my husband and I would go camping. Don't let your illness get in your way of living. Of course, you need to try to exercise, and just like every other person on the planet, to try and stay healthy, do the exact same things. But I will say this, take your medication. You might be feeling good. Oh, I feel good. I don't have to take that immune suppressant crap. It's going to cause side effects and this and that. The side effects, they're there and you get them. No one's exempt from the side effects from the medication. But the alternative is to lose that organ. And I sure don't want to go back on dialysis. So I'll deal with the osteoporosis, the knee replacement, the diverticulitis, the cataracts. Now I have type 2 diabetes. And a lot of it is from the drugs. But the big thing from the drugs is you keep your kidney. To me, it's a no-brainer. So take your drugs, live positively. Of course, try to live a healthy lifestyle and do what the doctor says. You may have a little bit of apprehension. Oh, I don't know if I want to get that COVID shot or that flu vaccine, or I don't know. I just found a great doctor and I put my faith in his knowledge.
Well, that sounds like great advice. In what ways has your experience with your transplant influenced your relationships with your family and friends?
Well, they've been very supportive. I have a really good family network. My mother is still living. She just came in the room and waved at me. She's 91. I have always had support from my family. My son, who is now 44. My daughters are 34. They've been through this with me together. And I can't ask for a better church, family, friends network. They've always been there for me.
And so have you been involved in advocacy or support groups for kidney transplant recipients?
Yeah, like I said, especially now with the COVID thing, that those Zoom meetings are zooming all over the place. I just found out about one, maybe a year ago, a fella named Jim Hills. He's out in California, and he heard about me, I think through Organ Transplant Support, which is a group here in Illinois run by our own members. And we Zoom once a month, and they have different activities. And their motto is no one should go through this alone. And so I hooked up with them years ago, and they've been there for me. I'm a mentor for a couple of other individuals they're waiting for their kidneys. So then out there, Jim's group, he had me on as a guest speaker. I continued to meet with that group. Every Wednesday they meet. It started out with liver transplant recipients, but they branched out. There's other transplants, and that's every Wednesday. You feel like talking, you just jump on your phone or your computer for 1 hour, 8 o'clock on Illinois time. And then they have other groups that they've led me to. I mean, you could probably every night join a meeting and listen to other people's situations. And that's another big thing, talking about your issues. And you feel so comfortable because everyone in that group has gone through pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing with the transplant games. My favorite part is sharing your story and listening to other people and getting some ideas. You don't want to go back and say to your doctor, well, I heard at the transplant game, not medical advice. We know for sure this is not medical advice. It's just medical support. And like, for example, many of the people on transplants are on a medication called prednisone, and it is they call it the devil because it does have a lot of side effects. And I've been on that for 40 years. So I'm not coming off of it, but with talking to other people, many individuals are on a maintenance dose of 5 milligrams, and I've been on 10. And I just thought, maybe we could try and wean down, which we have. So it's stuff like that. You can compare notes, but at the same time, none of us are doctors, but we've all been there. And sometimes that's even more of a good advice when you hear somebody that's been through it.
Absolutely. The lived experience is definitely valuable. So what misconceptions do you think that people have about life after kidney transplant?
I keep hearing, kidney transplants from a deceased donor, they only last 5 to 10 years. That one right there is not true because there's something called the Quarter Century Club, started by an individual who had his transplant 49 years ago. We meet at the transplant games, but it's a lot of stuff now on Facebook or Zooming. There's so many different ways to communicate that have had their transplants from deceased or living donors for 25 years or more. And it's a huge group. There's a lot of people involved. And so I think that's one of the misconceptions that people have is they don't last very long. This is a misconception, but not really kidney transplants, but people think that if you become an organ donor, they're not going to try to save your life because, he's an organ donor. Let's not work on him as hard as we could to keep him alive in the emergency room because we know that this person's an organ donor and that's going to help 25 other people, 6 organs and all these other different tissues and skin, things like that. That's not true. First of all, when you're in the emergency room being looked after and tried to save, they don't pull out your driver's license and check out to see if you're an organ donor. They're too busy trying to keep you alive.
That's right.
That's a big misconception I hear.
Mm-hmm.
Life after transplant, maybe there are things that I can't do. I mean, I'm not going to go out and play football or any contact sport, although these basketball players, I think that is a contact sport. And they're out there playing their hearts out and they're dunking and running into each other and having a great time. I wish I could do that, and I'm not going to put my kidney in harm's way in some kind of an activity that I might get smashed into because your new kidney is located, I always call it, in my lap. So it's between, they just need to have a nice little cavity there to put one kidney. You can live actually on 1/3 of one kidney, but 1/3 of one kidney is put where it's close to an artery, a vein from your leg, and then hook up to the bladder so the urine has somewhere to go. So the ideal spot is right there in your lap. I call it in my lap. Most people have it on their right side. That I just heard that the other day, but I don't know if that's true or not. In fact, my surgeon, I met him for the first time on that night, and he said, well, what side do you want your kidney on? We put them, right below your belly there. And I said, well, on my left side, I had this peritoneal catheter that was still inserted in my groin area. And I said, on my right side, I have an inguinal hernia I've had since birth. He goes, we'll put it on your right side and we'll fix the hernia while we're in there. So I said, oh, okay, 2 operations for the price of one. That's it. I was just a joke. But even when Kevin was little, he wanted to play with me and jump on the bed or be a little rough. And I go, no, not there, not there. So you are protective of that area. But other than that, life after kidney transplant has been wonderful.
So looking back, what are you most grateful for in your life today?
My family. Yeah. My family, being able to see the kids graduate. I have a grandson now. I was right there in the room when he was born.
Yeah. Welcome to the club.
Yeah. My son, after all these years, he got married. They waited a long time, but November 16th of 24, they were united in marriage, and we were all there. Mom, my 2 daughters, and my grandson. We were all there to watch it happen. So, yeah, just grateful for life, that I have a God who loves me, and that I have a family who loves me too. And all my teammates, all my Team Illinois teammates, love them all.
And you have a lovely family. I've had the opportunity to meet several of them. And so you are blessed and lucky to have a wonderful family and support system.
That's the one thing that when you're given this gift, I think most people, it's just natural for us to want to give back.
Yes. Yes.
How can you repay the person? In my instance, I can't. He's been gone for 40 years. My kidney is 80 years old.
Wow.
And they always say pay it forward. I can thank his wife and his children, whom I just found in May. I just found out who my donor was. I've sent the card. She's written me back. I was finally able to say thank you. At the same time, how can you repay what's been given to you? And that's another way of keeping that kidney alive, by paying it forward and helping others in the journey. And as the journey continues and spreading the word of how organ donation is so important.
Yes, I agree.
Yep. We're in the same boat.
Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful story with us. I'm encouraged and excited to be following in your footsteps.
Well, I've met your family as well, and it's beautiful, and we have a lot in common.
Well, thank you so much, Debbie.
You're welcome.
Staying active and healthy is so important for recipients, and competing in the transplant games is a great way to keep your body moving with a supportive team cheering you on. For more information about joining or supporting Transplant Life Illinois, visit goteamillinois.org. I'm Monica Fox, and this is The Journey Continues. Prevention is a key part of our mission at NKFI. That's why at the end of each episode, we offer a health or nutrition tip.
Here is today's nutrition tip about dining out. For people living with chronic kidney disease, dining outside of the home or ordering takeout can feel stressful because it can be difficult to navigate the menu for kidney-friendly food options. So how can you enjoy dining out and keep your kidney diet in mind? Do some homework before you order your food or eat at the restaurant. Many restaurants now include nutrition information on their websites or menus to help consumers make healthier for them food choices. Soups, sauces, and salad dressings will likely have added salt, so be sure to check the nutrition information if available before you order. And you can always call the restaurant and ask if it's possible to prepare the menu item you desire without added salt. When you do order, do it with a kidney-friendly plate in mind by ordering a small mixed green salad dressed with oil and vinegar, a steamed vegetable side, a healthy protein that's baked or steamed, and a grain serving. If going with a plant-based protein option like a veggie burger, ask if any preservatives have been added, as these may increase the phosphorus and sodium content. A safe sauce choice for most people following a kidney-friendly diet is olive oil and garlic over rice or noodles. Be sure to keep your portions in check and ask for a to-go container when your food arrives. Put half of your main dish in the container before you even start to eat, or if you're getting takeout, portion out your meal on your own plates instead of eating out of the container. The National Kidney Foundation has a great resource called Dining Out with Confidence for people in CKD stages 1 through 4 and on dialysis. This resource can be found at kidney.org, or you can call the NKFI office for a printed copy to be mailed to you. With today's nutrition tip, I'm Melissa Press, a registered dietitian nutritionist